And we're live. How you doing, Frank?
Hey, how are you, Noah? Hi, everybody. Welcome to Everyman BJJ. I'm Frank Forza, Noah Green. So, Noah, we were talking about, I know you had some topics, the parable of priorities you wanted to talk about. You and I have been talking a lot about finances lately. I've talked about the difference between yellow jackets and honeybees and bumblebees because we have a yellow jacket nest that's here in the garden where I normally want to film. You were telling me some things that I could do to improve the lighting right now where I am. The spot that I wanted to record at, that's the yellow jackets have literally taken that over. And I just did a video on my YouTube channel, Frank Forza, about like an 8-minute video describing. I mean, this is what's interesting though. So before we get to other stuff, I wanted to talk about, who knows, to the viewers out there, to the audience. I do want to talk about Evan Dunham. We haven't talked about that. Evan Dunham, the UFC fighter who I've trained with since 2009, closed his gym there in Henderson, Nevada, right outside of Las Vegas. Gym was thriving. COVID-19 happens. Numbers are down. Big surprise. That's closed. I want to, talk about that, say a thank you to Evan. And, we've got Frankie Edgar. We can talk about Frankie Edgar, the comeback kid. Renzo Gracie, fighting under the Renzo Gracie banner. And I have a Frankie Edgar story. I have a couple of Frankie Edgar stories, things that come to mind. He's a great person to talk about, to carry over for sort of what I call the life jitsu, the art of life, like how all of this martial arts, jiu-jitsu stuff applies and carries over to life. He is just a poster boy for a lot of things. But I want to talk really quick about these yellow jackets. So that's where I wanted to be filming. So earlier today, I had a couple of chairs, and I took the chairs near their nest, like literally like a foot or a foot and a half from their nest. They're kind of buried under these logs, like these wood logs. And I don't know why. Usually I see them darting in and out of there. They dart in like they're not like honeybees. Honeybees kind of chill and they're lazy and they circle things and then they land on the plant and then they circle. Yellow jackets are very sleek and very lean, and they just dart almost like airplanes at an airport, just landing, and they just keep coming into their hive and land and land and land. So I've seen them do that. I was stung a few weeks ago by one in my finger, and I don't know why I'm not scared. I've been stung by a bee before, so I wasn't scared of it. So anyway, I went to put the chairs there to set up some filming, and bro, they came at me so hardcore. One of them, chased me all the way over here, so like 12 yards, and I have my hands full with a computer and
Man.
and my notepads and whatever. So I'm not able to really swipe at him. So one of them got me on the ear, no big deal, right? He got me planted on my ear, stung me in the ear, and anyway, about 4 hours after I put that chair there, right? Because I was going to sit there. And I was like, I'll just leave the chair because I moved as much as I could away from them, but I'm like, I don't want to go back and get another chair because they were kind of fired up about it. 4 hours later, no. The chair is still there. In front of their hive, they're still circling the chair like an invader is there. Like there's like 50 of them still at the ready.
Wow.
They're circling the chair like it's an invader. They don't know the difference, right? All they know is a chair is too close to their hive. Just fascinating to watch the behavior. And, and again, those of us who confuse a honeybee and a bumblebee from a yellow jacket, and very similar looking, but completely different behavior. It's just interesting to look in like zoology and nature and see you can have something that looks very similar, but the behavior. Honeybees are actually very gentle unless you really provoke them. And of course they die. A honeybee dies upon the sting, right? It usually has that stinger near its abdomen. And once it stings you, it's good for one sting. And then there's a high probability it dies. Yellow jackets have a stinger where it's just like, they can put a bunch of stings together. Just anyway, interesting. That's at the top of my mind. So long story short, that's why I'm here and I have the less than ideal light.
Well, I think that I was just commenting. I think that wood door behind you, the weathered look and with the plant there, I think that looks fantastic, man. I think that's a better spot for you. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic spot there. If that log is on your on that same property, then property owner is kind of responsible for that situation there. By the way, not that I'm giving legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, but I'll just say that I was reading books about. I had a big yard in Texas, and I got curious about things like beehives, and legal responsibilities of them. And because I had a beehive in my yard, in my backyard, and it's on a tee box. The house is on a tee box of a golf course. But I had huge garden, and it's called square foot gardening. You can look it up, and literally you take a 3x3 or 4x4 square, put in some material, and you put little 12x12 squares, and you could make an intensive little garden in just a few square feet. And I had that, and then I got crazy. I'm like, well, I want bees. So I went and I placed an order for a package of 10,000 bees and a queen. So I drove out to this apiary, which is, there's guys who have these businesses, and I showed up, and he's like, here's your package of bees and your queen. And the queen came in like a little test tube. I stuck that in the back seat of my truck. Okay, this is just faith right here, like, okay, I'm going to put these bees in the back seat of my truck. And I heard it. They're buzzing back there. Got them back. And, I'd read the instructions online on how to introduce your new hive to its hive box. And these are called what's the name of these? Those typical beekeeper boxes they have? That's a science in and of itself, man, with those frames. So I got totally geeked out on beekeeping, and but my hive died because red wasps and yellow jackets came in, and they were attacking. They were just popping the heads off of my bees, and so the hive, the colony, imploded on itself and died. So that's that was a lesson.
Interesting. That's interesting that even though yellow jackets look similar to honeybees or bumblebees, that actually wasps and yellow jackets prey on other insects, flies, and in this case, bees. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like a relative, and it's like they prey on their. I don't know. For some reason, I don't.
Super aggressive. Super aggressive. So I got so I'm not done with my. I've got stories in this. So I got a little crazy with this because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed I grew up. Off the grid for a few years, and so I know a little bit about how to survive, with your own planting, hunting, and fishing and whatnot. But I got fascinated with what are those little guys? Those little guys that praying mantis. So I ordered online, Amazon. You can get anything you want. I'm surprised you can't order a tank. I ordered every year. I ordered a little package to come to my house. I ordered ladybugs and praying mantis. Not one praying mantis, but a nest of praying mantises, and they would ship them to my house. And there's all instructions on how to introduce them. Praying mantises, they're carnivores, or no, they're cannibals. So not all, I'd see those little tiny praying mantis babies coming out of this little nest egg, and they'll start eating each other, but they're spread out, and I would have them all over my garden. And
now, are you saying that a mother praying mantis will eat even her own eggs or her own kids?
No, the kids are eating each other. They climb out of the egg and they start eating each
Come out
other.
and start to eat each other.
Yeah, it's vicious. But so I had praying mantises everywhere. Praying mantis. I don't know how you say it. So I had praying mantises all over the yard. It was great because they're monsters. I had hummingbirds, like
What else do they prey on though, other than each other?
other
What else?
insects. Yeah, other insects. Yeah, they're insects.
Back in Baltimore, I used to see them even as a kid. I mean, before I was 10 years old, I used to see them, and you'd see them kind of stand up, and they just have this. They're kind of. I mean, even though they're plain green, they're kind of flamboyant in the way in their posture and their postural awareness. Like they're like the best postured insect you could ever see. I'm assuming they're an insect that you could see it.
Yeah, they're an insect.
They have a lot of like character and pizzazz, like a presence.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, they're amazing. I've seen videos. You go look on YouTube. They've taken down hummingbirds. That's just vicious. They'll take down a hummingbird, but they will.
Do they have a stinger? Because what's interesting is, as a person and even as a kid, I wasn't scared of them. It's not like a praying mantis is going to prey on prey on us. It's not. So it's interesting that they can be that ferocious, and yet to humans it just seemed like they're fairly docile.
Yeah, no, they will eviscerate other insects, just rip them apart. They have claws, and their jaws are I think they're related to the ant, but they come in different colors. They will adapt their color. So there's brown ones, light brown ones, and
I only saw green. I saw green.
Yeah, yeah, they're called praying mantis chineses or sinensis, something like that. So they're from China. They're Asian.
But interesting. When you were talking about bees, because I was staying in an Airbnb a while back, and there was the owner there had a beehive out back, and he would go remarkably close, unlike what I encountered with the yellow jackets. He would say, hey, you could walk really close. They're not interested in you. They're doing their thing. They tend not to be aggressive with the beehive. And what's remarkable, so I'm here in Utah, living in Utah, and what's remarkable is the one of the, how each name has its state, Utah is the beehive state. That's what it is, so the beehive.
I didn't know that.
The symbol, it's the beehive state. And so the symbolism there is that, everybody working together to advance humanity, advance civilization, build the state. And what's interesting about, especially for you as a finance guy, you've been an executive, you've worked at with some major firms and banking institutions, and just on an organizational level, like if you were somebody that was interested in organization, just to study like their organization, you talk about like knowing your role and just team effort, right? Like for the team. It's just kind of remarkable to think about that a beehive can represent that. And you can look at things in nature, like, and again, we've seen this in the fight sports too, to bring it back to the fight sports, where we are regularly imitating animal movements. Animals are much more efficient in their movements. Alligators, monkey, we do monkey sprints, we do bear crawls, we do, we climb up things, and we do a lot of things that animals do so much more efficiently. Well, you've seen a lot of, even in the Chinese martial arts, in the Brazilian martial arts, Hickson Gracie, on and on and on. You see us, and I still do it. No, I do it multiple times a week. But it's interesting to look in nature, look at how an animal or an insect moves, how it behaves, and then sort of thinking as a human, what if I took some of those same principles, and whether it be beehive and your business organization, or whether it be crawling like a crocodile and crawling like a bear, crawling faster, climbing this, climbing that. And it would seem like crazy talk or preposterous to a lot of people, but we've seen a lot of the smartest people in different ecosystems do exactly that. Study those ecosystems. and say, what are the lessons for us as humans from this animal kingdom, from this insect kingdom, which is all around us every day, and which is blind to a lot of people. There is so much life, even like here in this garden. It looks like there's just some trees and whatever. If we went down into the soil with the worms, with the ants, in the trees, in the tree bark, there is so much life all around us, and yet
Absolutely.
every day we're just sort of blind to it.
Let me get in here with a thought about that. Talking about ants, ants give off this pheromone, and so they leave a trail behind them, so that other ants, and they'll use this like group mentality, this group think, where if there's more of a presence, if the presence of that pheromone trail is, there's like a lot of those trails there, and it's very recent, then the ants start to follow it. There's more ants. Like the wisdom of the crowd of like, how do we get to where we're going? They'll follow the intensity and the number of that there. But there's some danger in that. There's some danger in that, and I'm going to explain this. And we can extrapolate that to our current political thought and how we do things, which is, have you ever heard of an ant mill? All right, let me tell you what an ant mill is. Okay, so you ever watch an ant? It's moving fast. Okay, it's probably got 6 little legs, and they're moving fast. I mean, they're running. Okay, as fast as they can. So there's a phenomenon that happens. You can go see it on YouTube. Follow the ants. What they're doing is, there's a few scouts out. They'll go out. Ant scouts will go out and check stuff, and they find stuff. Then they'll start this big, follower movement. It's like one ant will follow another ant and follow another, and they're just following it. They're just following, and there's no real leader in this. But what happens? Imagine seeing where ants start, for whatever reason, this happens where ants start following the trail and they fall into a circle. So all the ants are running as fast as they can, follow the leader, and they go into a circle. And that's called an ant mill. And what happens is that's a death spiral. Because that ant is going to run as fast as it can to get to its destination. And this happens in nature. You'll see this in like the Amazon, in South America, in Brazil. They have these ant mills that occur naturally in nature. And these ants will run in a circle as fast as they can to their deaths. All right? And there's a little thought process about that, okay? And that is, I want to say, be careful of following the leader. You think objectively. There's a situation you can come into where you're following that leader and you are you trap yourself into a race to your own death, per se. Okay. You run into a dead end, or you get stuck into a honeypot. You run fast and faster, faster, and you can watch them. It's on YouTube. They'll run until they die. It's just thousands and thousands of ants dead after an ant mill.
It's interesting because assuming that they're on a mission, maybe we're assuming, but you're following other ants. You're thinking we're heading to do whatever. We're heading to get some stuff done.
We're doing the right thing.
You're buying into groupthink. You're buying into what the tribe is doing.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're going in a circle. Now, what's interesting is metaphorically, this reminds me. I had this conversation with my brother at different times of our lives, and I was like, when you sort of go through the proverbial midlife crises, and I'm like, wow, I was like, I've said before, they've never made a lazy Carreri, right? The Carreri family. We have every kind of dysfunction the world has ever seen, but we've yet to produce, knock on wood, a lazy Carreri. Everybody has a hard work ethic. Even the most drug addicted person in the family, people have been in prison. Everybody is a worker. But what's interesting is you can be, to your point, someone like me, felt like, wow, I'm such a hard worker. I pride myself on being the hardest worker in the room. And then you look up after a number of years and you find out that you're like, wow, I used to say to my brother, Nobody ever ran harder in a circle than me. I don't know anybody that ran harder, only to
Oh
find
yeah,
you're running.
just a
So
massive
yeah,
fool's
I was
errand.
not aware of this phenomenon. Like, wow. And if you're not careful, like you just said, perfectly and metaphorically and poetically,
Thank you.
if you're not careful, you just burn the candle at both ends,
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't have any, as the Chinese call it, jing. The Chinese call it jing. It's like your life force, your zest. You got to preserve that. You don't want to burn that out. You only have so much of that. And what are you going to budget it on? Like for you, a finance guy, what am I going to budget that life force, or as I call it, life forza? What am I going to budget that jing on? Because you only have so much of it. You only come in the world with so much energy. You only have so much attention. You only have so much you can aim at. What are you going to choose to budget that at? And a lot of people, unfortunately, just don't wake up in time, Noah, to realize that they're in that death spiral, or they're too afraid. What's crazy is some people know they're in that death spiral, or that
Mm-hmm.
spiral of diminishment, that spiral where they're not getting better. Because Drysdale used to say to everybody, he used to come in there, and his thing, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. There was no Stacy's. There was no holding pat. There was no just, okay. It was, you're either getting better or you're not. You're either caught up in this little treadmill, you're a hamster on a wheel, you're not getting better. You're either getting better or you're not. And at the end of the day, it's true. And the thing is, a lot of people get so comfortable with that they're just too afraid to ever jump off of that mill. They're like, hey, I'll just stay in and especially when there's a lot of other people in there too. I mean, right? So you get comfortable. Okay, well, there's a lot of us, right?
You're in a pack. Yeah. I'm in a
Yeah.
pack. I've got the safety of my pack. You have a mosquito biting you or something over there?
I have a fly that flies.
Oh,
This is one of the the pro and con of everything in life is the pro is there's some beautiful rustic architecture and structures near me. There's the mountains in the yonder. There's some big trees. There's a nice botanical garden here. There's a swimming pool. The con is that the insects, this is a paradise for them, right? So there's yellow jackets, there's
got it.
spiders, there's flies, and this is their paradise too, right? So
Yeah, it's funny. You can make a hell of paradise. Um, let me stick with that metaphor for a second, but I want to go. Actually, I want to kind of jump a little bit and talk. When I was studying for the CPA exam, my mentor there was a man named Don Kane, Koehn, Don Kane. Not to be confused with Don King, the boxing promoter. But Don Kane is a CPA, and he had his own private practice, his own CPA firm, and he hired me to work in his office, and that was my first taste of what it's like to work as a CPA practitioner, and he embodied ethics, and I first got to know him before I started working for him was through a CPA review course, and I sat in that CPA review course, and the first week, because I was doing this on weekends, Sundays we had our review course, and he came up there and he took a jar. Now he took a glass jar. Now I'm just going to hold this up for a second as a let me just use my tea glass. Okay, just imagine this has a lid, has a closure on top. Okay, and he said, I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about how you look at priorities with what you're doing. And so he took that jar and said, you have large pebbles, and you put the large pebbles in, okay, first. Shake it up a little bit. Then you take some smaller pebbles, like small gravel pieces. You put those in, shake it up. And then you take sand. You pour sand in there because you're trying to fill this jar up to this max capacity. You shake it up. Are you done? No. So he takes a glass of water. He pours water into it. He goes, done. Now this is about how you prioritize things, like your time. Now what I'm telling you to do is you're not trying to fill every the entire volume up. You're not trying. That's not what time management is, and how you set priorities. When you set priorities, what I mean, what was meant was you take the large things first. They go in first, okay, and then the smaller things. So now's a good time. When we talk about priorities, there's so much instability. There's so much going on with. You see other people around you, your close community, things are starting to get a little wobbly on the wheels. And you guys take a step back and make your priorities again. Check your priorities. Check your priorities and how you spend your time. And, I think you and I have been working a lot. I have my own CPA firm and my own practice that I use as my quote unquote side hustle, but it's, I'm a professional, so I have to take care of clients. I have that. Why? Well, in times like this, it helps it helps balance things out whenever, when things are rough. You have your own professional practice that you're in, Forza Fit, coaching, uh, uh, health and wellness, and your writing career. Those are things that you prioritize as your major works in life. What we're doing with jiu-jitsu may not seem like a priority right now to a lot of people. May not be a priority, but it's actually if you keep jiu-jitsu in your life right now in some way, you keep that connection, it's going to help bind together everything that you need.
The real power, I'm glad you talk about prioritizing, right? The art of prioritizing. Jim Rohn, the motivational philosopher and businessman, very successful businessman, he used to say, "Don't major in minor things." Right?
Yeah.
And this has been a really important lesson to me, because I didn't think that time as sort of the ultimate currency, right? We always think of money, but of course, when you have a lot of money, and even when you get money, time becomes the precious currency, right? That's the thing. That's, money can to some people seem infinite, right? It just keeps going and going and going, but time is not, right? Time is finite, and we never know when time is up in this dimension. We don't know.
Yeah.
And so, your attention, you think of the phrase, I was thinking of this, Noah, when I was been bike riding. I'm thinking of the phrase, people use the phrase, pay attention, right? Your teachers growing up, how many times has a teacher said to someone, pay attention?
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about that is, why did they choose the word pay? Because you would say, hey, give me your attention, or blank attention. Why did someone instinctively say someone long ago used the word pay attention, and it's stuck? What does that mean? What that means is that attention is a currency. It is a form of respect. If I'm sitting here fully engaged with you in conversation, and I give you my time and my attention, and you as a very smart financial guy with the numbers, and you've been helping me with getting better at, looking at itemizing and expenses and Schedule C's, and you're teaching me that time, that is respect. That is a deep respect, especially in this case where you're not even being paid for. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. That is a respect. That is a valuing of someone. You have plenty of other things you could be doing. You're a curious guy. You have plenty of books to read. You have a lovely family. You're going to go to some of the, prominent grad school there, University of Michigan. You've got your jiu-jitsu stuff. You've got plenty to do. And so, in terms of the prioritization, where I had to learn, I have to start thinking of time as a budget, right? It is a budget. There's only so many hours in a day. And what's interesting, Noah, is the busier I get, the more I add, actually, the better I get with budgeting my time, the better I get with organizing, by necessity. A lot of times people who aren't as busy waste a lot of time and don't even realize it, because they're not that busy. Right? When
That's
you
it.
actually
You got it.
When you actually have to juggle, you have a wife and kids, you have grad school, you have work, you have jiu-jitsu. on the one hand, this is the paradox of it. On the one hand, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. On the other hand, people that have those rich, full lives and so much to do, they become the best at time management. They become the best at prioritizing out of necessity because they have to. And so I'm entering that place now too, where, there are some, I think for people out there with time management, it really starts with what's not negotiable. Like what in your schedule in your life, everybody has to decide what is not up for negotiation. Like for me to not work out 6 days a week, pretty much for me right now, that's not negotiable. That's not just
That's your
just
priority.
blood flow. That's not just muscles. That's not just testosterone. That is sanity. That is therapy. That is meditation. That is not negotiable. Because even if I say, well, let's get rid of the working out, nothing, I'll be a wreck. I'll be imbalanced, grossly imbalanced. So that's not negotiable. So people have to sit there when they look at these lists or the spreadsheet of their life. You're doing financial spreadsheets, but somebody looking at the spreadsheet of their life from the time they go to bed to the time they wake up to the first things that they do. It's really like, okay, what's just not negotiable here? I mean, for me, at minimum 6 hours of sleep normally. I used to be able to go off less when I was younger, but right now, very rarely. I go off 5. Some days I do, but normally I'm looking at that 6 to 7 hours. Some days 8, some days 9. Some days I'll do a catch-up day. I'll get 10, 10 and a half. Those are rare days, but I do try to squeeze those in a couple times a month because they help me recharge. But it's not negotiable. I already know, hey, at least 6 to 7 hours are accounted for sleep. For me, since I'm a workhorse and my body likes to be revved, it likes to be pushed, we're looking at 90 minutes to 3 hours of working out every day, depending. But I got to usually get at least 90 minutes. And I have to be able to turn the world off, too. A lot of people work out, but they got one eye on their cell phone, their email. I have to be able to turn the world off for at least 90 minutes to 3 hours a day to just empty. And anyway, I can go on and on and on about this, but yeah, it's interesting what he taught you about the prioritizing in that jar, and that's a really big thing. Like those are paramount things for me right now. I think about that almost every day. I always think now more and more. I think about my financial budget. You and I have talked about this is the leanest I've ever lived in my adult life, and I would say in terms of my schedule, in terms of my day, designing my day, this is the leanest I've ever lived, like the best priorities and the best list I've had. And I'm probably just scratching the surface. Like
The richest you've ever felt.
For improvement. Yeah.
I'll say I was a millionaire in my 30s. And I cannot tell you how miserable I was. And this is, I've made a lot of mistakes, I made a lot of mistakes. And it's been hard to come back from those mistakes in my life. I was the most unhappy when I was the richest. And I've been the happiest when I've been the poorest. And I cannot tell you, this is for real. I've regretted not having my wits about me when I did have a lot of money at that time. And I learned some really good life lessons there. Sorry, it's such a punch to the gut to think about, how good I had it and I wasted an opportunity because I thought that having that money would make me happy. It didn't. It brought me so much misery and sadness. It takes some major midlife crises to help you get the wisdom to apply solid judgment. I cannot emphasize this enough. Our time is so precious. It is so precious. So, I faced, I questioned continuing to live during that time, because it was such a war to become a millionaire, and then to have it, and then to realize that it was a hollow victory. It was a hollow victory. And I needed jujitsu the most then. I needed my friends the most then. And what I had done was push myself further and further away, isolated myself, extreme social distance myself away into a situation where my life crumbled. And yeah, sorry. It's just, times like these, I look at the mistakes I made, and, I'm talking to you about things. We build from where we are. That's the best place. Work with what you got right now. Um, if we work with what we have right now and we commit ourselves every minute of paying attention, pay that price. I have struggled with being lazy. As a CPA, you're supposed to get 40 hours of continuing professional education every year in, year out. And that is hard to do because that's a whole work week. And I would give myself excuses, and I would say I would sign up for a service that's $300 a year, and say to myself, "Oh yeah, $300. That way I don't have to take all these free CPE courses out there and have to just be going all over the place to find it. I would have one source to take it." And that was actually intellectually, or that was lazy. That was lazy on my part. Um, Now that I am practicing extreme budgeting, like where I budget from zero, you know, you should be paying nothing for things if you can. I practice this um, to some. I mean, I'm not going to buy rotten meat. Okay, I'm going to buy organic food. My food budget is probably the most. That competes for rent sometimes. But what I'm saying is, there are little expenses every month and big expenses where I I was too lazy to haggle over. I was too lazy to negotiate. I was too arrogant. Oh, I don't want to come across as this person, looking for discounts. Or I went through that crazy mindset and learned a solid lesson that no, uh, what you need to do is say, why should I pay this? And what I should do is go and not pay anything and force myself to not to be intellectually lazy, and find things that I'm paying for now, get rid of them, and substitute it with something where I'm not paying anything for it, or I'm paying at least half less. So,
Yeah,
for
I don't
example,
know that you're, I would say as your friend, I don't know that you're intellectually lazy. I think you're actually intellectually rigorous and active. You may just have so many interests that it's hard for you to sit down at different times in your life where you're doing the same thing and this some monotonous things. I think your mind is very fertile and very curious. I want to say something though. So this is one of the things, you talk about one of the most important things for fighters and combat sports athlete is efficiency, economy of motion. You have to be very economical in your motion. When you're
mhm,
wasting motion, every time you're moving with your, not you, but anybody, we're
yeah,
moving with our foot movement, our hand movement. The more we're wasting motion, the quicker you get tired, right? Usually when you're wasting motion, your breathing is off too. So those go hand in hand, right? Somebody who's moving very inefficiently, usually their breathing reflects that, right? Their breathing is all messed up and hyperventilated and sped up, and they're breathing way. You look at them and they're doing bear crawls. They're huffing and puffing, and you're like, well, they're either out of shape or they're very inefficient in their movement. So if we bring efficiency to their movement and we bring proper breathing and we bring better postural improvements are usually improvements of efficiency. And the same thing, we start looking at our balance sheet, whether it be finances, of which I'm not an expert, but I've started to do that a little better with your help. So you have a financial balance sheet, you have designing your day hour by hour, what it's going to look like, what food prep, what you're going to read, who you're going to meet with, project deadlines, etc. And the more, that's a big part of life, is constantly looking at our balance sheet. What are we spending our money on? What are we spending our time on? What projects are we invested in? And even for me, because you know that I'm a very friendly, gregarious guy. I have, I see people around town. I love random conversations. So some of the best conversations I've ever had are just randomly meeting people. And I've had to take inventory and say, Frank, something has to give. Something has to give. You can't have all these things. You have all these interests, but something has to give. Either you can't have a girlfriend, or you can't spend as much time with friends. I've got different things I want to do. And the thing is, when you get to where I am in the middle age, even though I feel like I'm getting younger and better in a lot of ways, the reality is certain goals have to go by the wayside. Noah, I could still do, okay? I could absolutely still go when the tournaments open up and do jiu-jitsu tournaments. I could do 30 of them a year. When IBJJF opens back up, I could say, I'm going to travel and go do those and get sponsors. And I could do that. The question is, why do a person who loves grappling, who's done it for 34 years, why do I not prioritize that? Because at this point in my life, I can continue to get better, but these young kids are a lot better too. They've got youth on their side. They're 20 years old. They can train 4 times a day. I mean, their bodies heal quicker. I've got a lot of injuries and all, and I could spend a lot of time injured. I could burn the candle at both ends. What's left of my body, I could use it up in a couple more years of hard training in jiu-jitsu. I could use it up. I'm not saying there's not a way. I'm just saying, when I look at the calculus of my life right now, and I'm not saying that I won't do a tournament again. I probably will do some more tournaments. But the reason I'm not putting every chip on that, it's not a lack of love. It's just that there are other things there for the taking. There are other things that I had put on the back burner. There are other goals, writing books, producing some music albums. There were other goals that I put on the back burners, and I'm saying, Frank, my standard, Noah, whether it's fair or unfair, and I fall short a lot, my standard is excellence. My bar is very high. And the reality is, in jiu-jitsu, as a physical athlete, I am not going to be able to beat the Mikey Musumecis of the world. I have to accept that. That's a hard pill to swallow. I love Mikey, but I'm talking about some of that caliber, the Lucas Lepres, the Mendez brothers. It's not going to happen. We just have to accept at some point you wake up. And those years, that time has gone. That time has passed. It's not to say that you can't be competitive with them, but that's not the point. My point is not to go on a mat and be competitive with them. That doesn't do it for me. My point is, Frank, what can you contribute to the world in an excellent way right now? And how much time do you have to do that? When you're an athlete, Noah, you only have a certain amount of time. Frankie Edgar's still doing it. He's defying age. He did it last night. Big upset win. He's 38. He's beating Father Time for all the beatings that he's had and put his body through. It's pretty amazing what he does at 38. But there's still a time limit on that, right? At some point, we have.
Well, unless you're cheating. You're cheating somehow. I'm not. No. And let me say, I inserted that comment prematurely. By the way, sorry about that. Because I'm not saying that about Frankie Edgar. It's
Frankie is almost certainly a clean athlete. You know that.
And I'm sorry. I blurted that out without thinking of the timing of it, because he's an awesome human being. It was just like on the tip of my tongue, and I wanted to say that there is a bit of short circuit that can occur if you want certain things without achieving them properly.
But this is the thing, Noah. I think that we pay the piper for the things that we do in this life. I think we pay the piper one way or the other. Like you were saying when you were sharing your story, that life experience for you, that you were the least happiest when you had the most money, and we've heard that story in a lot of people. This is an interesting thing. When someone has a lot of money and they're depressed and they're down and it even crosses their mind like, hey, maybe it's better if I'm not here. I think that in a lot of ways, it's worse when you have a lot of money and you're that down in the that depressed, because when you don't have money and you're depressed or you're angry or you're going through things, you at least have the comfort, well, I haven't done everything I can. I could go out and make more money. I could solve this problem. I could do better financially. And then a lot of this would go away, right? So I could convince myself, if I'm going through something and I'm a middle class person and I'm going through something, I could convince myself, well, yeah, whatever financial stresses you have, I can improve that, and then the quality of my life and my freedom will go up, and I'll be so much happier. But when you've already got the money and you're thinking that the money was going to be this big, like, hey, money's going to make 70-80% of my problems go away, and it hasn't made them go away, and or in some ways things are worse because maybe somebody uses us for our money, right? Maybe somebody comes in and maybe we make bad investments, or maybe someone uses us for our money or exploits us for our money, whatever the case may be. Then there's the guilt, the anger, and so many things that are wrapped around that. So, but the thing is, I'm a big believer that we don't escape karma in this dimension. We are weaving our own karma with our decisions. So for the athlete, for instance, and you and I both know that Frankie Edgar is a clean athlete. I've even had this conversation with other athletes. He's one of the clean athletes. But whoever it is, people pay the piper one way or the other, whether it's their health, people dying prematurely way before they should. It's hard on the organs. You don't get something for nothing. It's like, with Wall Street and things people do, that stuff can catch up to people, right? It's a very dangerous game to play when people are going to constantly cut corners. That's why when we use the word hack and we say, body hacks, life hacks, weight loss hacks, that's great. We all have to hack at something in our life because, like for me with financing, I don't have enough time or enough interest to be an expert at that. So I'm going to defer to Noah to be my hack, right? Noah's going to walk me through it, shortcut me. That kind of hack is a good thing. But when people really, that's a different hack where somebody is supplementing our knowledge. Say, hey, Noah, you can't know everything. So I'll be your jiu-jitsu hack and shorten your learning curve there, right? But if you're going to be, if this is like where you want to plant your flag, okay, I'm not going to plant my flag as a financial consultant or financial executive, right? If I'm going to plant my flag there, I'm going to be an elite jiu-jitsu player, then I think hacks, even though you can shortcut and you get instructors, I think we really have to, I think that there's no shortcuts there in the end. We can have an instructor that teaches us the right way from the ground up how to build the foundation, but there really are no shortcuts. It's hard, monotonous. There's no shortcut. It's 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours, 25,000 hours. The hack doesn't work there in the areas of our life where we're going to plant the flag, where we're working on our legacy, where we're working on the foundational things, the essence of us, your life's work. The hack doesn't work there. That is a 15, 20 year, 30 year sign up. That is a marriage. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So we all have areas of our life. If you're not, you and I do a lot of cooking. So, you've got different recipes with eggplant and things like that. So I can use that hack, right? I can say, hey, Noah's going to save me time. He gives me his eggplant recipe, his grilled eggplant recipe. There's places. But when it comes to something you really care about, that's going to be, you're trying to produce beautiful art. I don't believe in hacks with that. I believe in hard work. I believe in get married to it. Hip escapes. You don't like hip escapes? Quit jiu-jitsu. People don't like doing hip escapes and paying attention and doing 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 hip escapes. You know what? Don't do jiu-jitsu. You don't like push-ups? Probably don't do jiu-jitsu. You don't like people sweating on you? Don't do jiu-jitsu. I mean, there's no hacking. There's no real shortcut around that. It's hard work. And this is the thing with jiu-jitsu, why are we Everyman jiu-jitsu? And then we talk about other life things too, but because we're talking about jiu-jitsu as a way, all it is it's like Sun Tzu or whatever, Lao Tzu and, the Tao Te Ching, and know thyself, right? One of the top commandments in life is know thyself. Those mats are going to force us to know ourselves. They're going to force us to invest in ourselves. They're going to force you to have an even more intimate relationship with yourself, not just with other people, because at the end of the day, it is it's certainly, there's nothing physical or nothing romantic going on there, but it is a very intimate sport. It's the most intimate of sports in that I can feel every ounce of fight in my opponent, in my training partner. It's the most intimate. Without saying a word, I can feel what this guy is made of. And same thing, we're not BSing each other. This is not a negotiation where we're playing a game and smoke and mirrors. There's no smoke and mirrors going on. He's gonna have to show his hand on the mat, and I'm gonna have to show my hand. And so that intimacy is not just with training partners and opponents. That intimacy foremost is with ourselves. That's all jiu-jitsu. All jiu-jitsu is a mirror. It's a mirror. Those mats are a mirror. And it's just saying, hey, take a good hard look at what you like, at what you don't like, at what needs work. And are you willing to show up every day? And so, Renzo Gracie used to say, if you can't spend at least 1 hour a day doing what you love, like something like jiu-jitsu or working out, then something is grossly wrong with your life. And I would amend what Renzo said, and I've met Renzo a couple of times. I would say if you don't have 2 hours, if you don't have at least 2 hours of your life, of your day, at least 2 hours carved off for something you really love, heart and soul, at least 2 hours where you can empty, you can turn off the world, then something's wrong with our life, man. Something's wrong with our life. If we can't carve at least 2 hours a day, even the busiest person, 2 hours of turn off and tune in to your inner voice, to your inner, your inner nature, to your intimacy, knowing thyself, you knowing yourself, and saying, okay, I've been running from this a long time, like those ants on that mill. I've been running in a circle, or I've been running from this a long time. It's time to face the music. Now, I just did that with you. I mean, on some things that, you and I consulted with. We're not going to talk about it right now, but I got to face the music on something. We all have to face the music at some point.
I really enjoy getting together with you and Jordan each week to talk about this, because this is, lately, obviously, my access to Renzo's it's closed. I don't have an opportunity to go train with my training partners there. So I've really enjoyed the past now 8 months or more getting together with you and Jordan to talk about jiu-jitsu and the wonderful things we've done. I want to say, probably,
yep.
Yeah, we've probably sat and had 40 to 50 hours or more together and talked about jiu-jitsu and its art. And oh no, you okay?
Yeah, I got it. I caught it.
Oh, good.
My phone would have been toast if I didn't catch it. That's the reflexes that I have to credit jiu-jitsu with that.
Yeah.
That was totally jiu-jitsu right there.
So, but I wanted to. I don't know. Did you have time to go past 3? Well, it's under 10 minutes.
Like 4:20. What time is it?
All right, so that would be another 30 minutes.
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to check. All right. You see this podcast has done a lot for me inside. It's done a lot. But it's just a reflection of how much jiu-jitsu has done a lot for me. Middle-aged investment banker, and I've grown so much just even this past half a year, having so much discussion with you guys, and I think that what we should look at expanding what we do on here, and what do you think? A little bit about Frank. You've got so much fight knowledge, and initially I thought sitting down with you and on a podcast was to extract some of that fight knowledge. And I feel like we're not even touching, like we're only getting 20, 25, maybe 30% of your knowledge in it. I think what I'd like to do is to propose to you to go deeper in that analysis, and possibly, what do you think about us doing some breakdown videos, in UFC fights, and we take, technique videos or something like that. I think that would be, that's something I know I would benefit from, just to hearing your knowledge. What do you think? Can you hear me? Well, that's not a good sign. All right, so let's see what we can do with Frank. I think he lost his signal. I'm gonna drop him out of the frame for a second. Let's see if Frank will come back. All right, so it looks like we lost Frank, but yeah, I think that working with Frank, he's been phenomenal in helping me. He has a consulting practice, Life Jiu-Jitsu, Frank Forza, that I would like to recommend. If he has his website, and I know he puts it in the show notes, but if you can, go and take a look at it, and reach out to him and just learn that. But I also want to talk about real quick about suicide. I spoke earlier in this podcast about that difficulty that I was going through. And, I made a promise to my cousin that I would not harm myself. And, or others, we get in a dark space. But I think that if you are going through that, make a promise to someone. You're more than welcome to reach out to me, bigmangreen@gmail, and we can talk about it. I can get you professional help. Frank.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. I got to talk a little bit about Frank Forza Fit, and I also talked about during difficult times, to reach out to someone and talk to them. I gave my email address. Folks can reach out to me. I go through a really dark time. You're freezing up on me. I don't know if you're.
Well, am I still frozen up?
No, now it's not. But I'm not trusting this situation.
Yeah. So what happened was, I'm sitting out there. I'm the sun freak, and I love being in the sun. And apparently, my phone. I love the sun. My skin loves the sun. My phone does not. So the phone just shut down. It's too hot. So you had made the proposal, and we talked about it before. But yeah, let's do it. Let's start doing some fight breakdowns. It could be anything from a jiu-jitsu match, a submission grappling match, an MMA fight with a finish there. And also, I would even say even Street Fighter videos too, because I actually study quite a few of those. I think that from my Baltimore days, I've always been interested in sort of like the body language, what people are capable of. Like almost for example, one of the things that I've done instinctively as a martial artist over the years, Noah, is this gift of looking at people's bodies, someone you don't know, and looking at their body and knowing what their potential is without even having ever seen them, right? So just doing a quick calculation of this is how tall they are, this is how long they are, this is how they move, this is their body posture, this is probably what they would, their bag of tricks. Because that old saying I used to have, and I said it to Matt Serra many years ago at the UFC gym, I'd say build your game around your frame. Most people, this is the weird thing, almost like an empath or almost like an intuitor, where you can look at someone you've never seen and you can just pretty much tell, okay, how strong is this guy? Does he have a great, one punch? Is he a hard puncher? You can look at his hand size. A lot of things you can look at. And so when you study those fight videos, again, I'm assuming hand-to-hand combat. Normally there are exceptions with knives and weapons and bats and people doing crazy things or jumping people. But I like to look at them and see just the range of things. Like, for instance, let me give you an example. Okay, let me give you one example of like people don't
Uh-oh.
Most
Freezing up
people,
again. There you go.
most people, yeah, I'm here. Most people don't think of this, right? Let's take, for instance, the case of it's Roger Huerta had a fight. Remember Roger Huerta, who was on the cover? He was the first MMA fighter on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and he was there. He fought one night in Houston, and I was actually there with Dana White. I was actually cage side, front row. I was sitting in Dana White's seats. I think it was 2007, and we were down there in Houston. Roger Huerta had fought, and then a picture from that became the cover, the front cover of Sports Illustrated. That was a huge moment for UFC to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, even though there was still sort of the Sports Illustrated angle was still kind of like, should this be legal, right? Barely legal.
Mm-hmm.
Or it still had some of those, the blood sport connotations, but at the same time, it was balancing the stories a little more and becoming a little more accepting. Well, anyway, Roger Huerta one day, years later in Austin, Texas, where he lived, he got into a street altercation. I think a guy had been abusive to a woman, something like that. Roger Huerta was coming to the defense, if I remember correctly. Anyway, this guy is considerably bigger than Roger Huerta, who fought at 155 pounds. And this guy is a lot bigger, and Roger Huerta throws this high kick from hell, right? Boom.
I remember this.
The big guy just falls. So there's probably still video of it on YouTube. Roger Huerta throws this high kick from hell, and this guy just falls. And of course, people who aren't as familiar, right, even at that point, whatever it was, 2011, 2012, 2013, whenever it was that incident happened, there was still a lot of the world that didn't realize that a 170-pound guy could destroy a 250, 260-pound guy. And this guy that Huerta knocks out looks like I think actually he was on the University of Texas football team. That's what made it even more amazing. I think the guy was on the I'm pretty sure the guy was a member of the Texas University of Texas football team. The Horns, the Longhorns. And so This guy looks the part, right? And Huerta just high kicks him like a walk-off head kick. Now, what's my point with that? My point with that is not just the training. My point with that is a lot of people don't think that at nighttime, you have to understand, even if you're in a downtown area like where they were, there were street lights, right? If someone throws a high kick and someone is proficient, guess what, Noah? Guess what? Guess how quickly your eyes are going to be able to pick up that high kick? Not very quick.
Not very quick at all.
Your eyes might not see that high kick at all. That guy probably never saw that high kick at all. He didn't see any part of that high kick coming. Not only was it not in his consciousness, right? Because this guy's probably not used to MMA, Muay Thai, whatever. So he's not even expecting it if it was broad daylight, but with just the dim lights there and some street lights in the yonder, that guy had not a prayer to pick up that high kick. It wasn't. Now, somebody who knows, who watches all the video I do, would be well aware. Hey, if you're out here and somebody has quick hands where he throws a high kick and it's dark, even when you're trained, you're going to have trouble picking up the hands, right? Especially if they're fast hands or fast this. So you've got to account for that when you're in situations. You've got to account for, hey, what's the lighting like? Are your eyes going to pick that up? People, listen, when you're watching UFC and I'm watching UFC, they have more lighting than any place on earth. There's no place on earth where
that's a great point. I didn't think about that.
More lighting than the UFC does, right? They pay a lot of money for that lighting right overhead. I mean, now fighters still have trouble picking up punch. They're still we have an old saying in the striking sports: the punch you don't see is the punch that'll knock you out. Guess what? The most elite fighters, there are times they don't see the punch. The punch is that fast, or they've been tricked, or somebody distracted them with something else in the body, some kick somewhere else. They never saw the punch, and then a referee wakes them up, or the ringside physician, like my buddy Dr. Dave Watson, comes and has to put a flashlight in their eye and wake them up. They never saw it, and there's more lighting than any other place on earth to see the punch. Now, you're telling me in a parking lot or a street corner or a back alley, bro, you're not picking that punch up. So you have to be aware of that, right? So what my point is, since I've been growing up, I've been doing this stuff, paying attention to this stuff, just like Henry Gracie is doing with his Gracie breakdowns. You and I have talked about it. I'm all in. I love to do it. I enjoy it. I do it anyway. I spend time doing it anyway. We just don't film it. And I would say, as I said to you one time before, the question might be raised, does the world need another MMA breakdown or fight breakdown or wrestling breakdown or whatever? Because there's been a lot more popping up, and there are some really good people, some really smart people. Dom Cruz does it for ESPN. He does a good job, an old friend. But I would say that, in the case of me, like I said, I'm grandfathered in. I'm like an OG in this sport. I've been doing this 34 years. I was doing it before there was any money in it. I was doing it. I was training jiu-jitsu, wrestling, working for UFC, covering UFC as a journalist, when literally a lot of people thought we were crazy. They thought we were bloodthirsty. They thought we were just savages. So I was doing it when I was just doing it for nothing more than the pure love of it, than the self-revelation of it, right? And the self-growth of it, then the ventilation, the therapy, the meditation of it. I was doing it for the right reasons. So to paraphrase Conor McGregor, I apologize to absolutely no blanking booty for wanting to do this, and maybe we're the 1,000th or 2,000 people to do it, but it's what I've been doing a long time, and it's what I enjoy doing, and I think it could I think it would definitely raise a lot of people's fight IQ to sit in on what do I see, not just in terms of the technique, but in terms of the body language, in terms of the alternatives. What could have been done in that situation to diffuse it, right? Other mistakes that are made. Even sometimes, Noah, this is when people are going to get better. If you're out there and you're training jiu-jitsu, you're training wrestling, you're training MMA, you're training boxing, training Muay Thai. If you want to get better, you alluded to this earlier, though. We can get a lot better at rock bottom, right? Because at rock bottom, life, God, spirit, whatever principles are governing this universe, they got our attention. I say that at my lowest points, whatever is above us, I say, oh, you got me. You got my attention now on this one, right? Sometimes you don't want to listen, and you just keep getting hit. And at some point, you're at rock bottom, or you're on your knees, and you're in a dark place, and you're depressed, and how do I get out of this? And how did I get here? And the one beautiful thing about that is, whatever it is above us, whatever it is that can come help us, you say, hey, you got my attention now, right? We talk about pay attention. All right, you buttered me up, you loosened me up. I'll listen to somebody other than myself now. I'll listen to something else. I'm open to change. I'm open to doing it different, right? And so I think that if you're going to be really smart in life, in the fight sports, you don't want to just learn, though, from our mistakes. That's beautiful. And that's where you're going to learn the most. Pain's a great teacher. Pain gets our attention. Pain grows us. The stress is a great growth facilitator. But can you be the person that's also winning, the front runner, and also learn? In other words, even the person that won the fight, that won the competition, that can go through your videotape or rewind in your brain and say, what could I have done differently? A real champion, a front runner. They say it's easier to win the title than keep the title. People that are going to keep the title and remain front runners and continue to grow the lead, continue to get better, you have to be willing to look also at when you won and be just as hungry to extract the lessons and the mistakes. Because, Noah, I can say from my tournaments, the biggest victories of my life, when I watch the videotape, the TEDx speeches, when I watch tournaments that I won, I watch matches, I can sit there and I'm like, bro, there's 30, 40 things that jump out at me that I'm like, can I get that one back? I want to do that better. And that's hard because, like you said, with intellectual laziness and things like that, a lot of times we get complacent. We have to not be complacent even when we're winning, because life is full of ebbs and flows. And sometimes we're paying attention, we're learning on the downside, and on the upside, we're not as attentive. We're not as hungry to learn. We're not as hungry to watch the video. We're not as dialed in for the mistakes and to fix the mistakes. And there's always mistakes. So one of the mistakes for street fight might be, there's usually, and we'll talk about this, but there's usually opportunities to diffuse things. That's one of the big things in martial arts too, right? It's like, in general, when somebody goes to fight in a street situation, even if you win, you lose, because you hurt another person. Even to win, you put yourself at risk. Maybe you put other people at risk, your friends at risk, and something is short in us, something is lacking in us, something in our ego, where there's usually many opportunities to diffuse things, or at the very least have sized up the situation in advance and gotten ourselves out of there and swallowed our pride. So these are the kind of things that that we can walk through, that we can do with these breakdowns and show people what we're seeing, what I'm seeing. And it's not just about the fight techniques. It's about body language, posture, alternative outcomes, opportunities to diffuse, opportunities where someone's ego got the best of themselves, and breaking down, taking a deeper dive into the ego things, taking a deeper dive into even sometimes the legality of things. Like when, a person might have a question like, when am I allowed to fight back? When am I allowed
Frank,
to?
Frank, I want to jump in here real quick
Yep.
and expand upon the format of a video breakdown. If you're listening to this podcast, close your eyes and now just think about looking at letters of text on a page and trying to extract from that information the amount of information you're going to get. That's just from that. Think about the amount of information you're getting just from hearing my voice through your ears and what's going to your mind. Okay? Now open your eyes and look at how much information you get from your sight and what you see. And that's just your perspective. Frank, you have over 3 decades of experience in seeing, feeling, hearing, touching, going through through violence, through martial arts, through technique. As one of the earliest of the early in the United States of getting a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the amount of information in what you see and getting the richness of that from you and you sharing that is huge. That's your perspective. Like my perspective, I've been around jiu-jitsu for a decade and I've been a white belt and a blue belt most of that time, off and on the mat. I see things and I see very little, but you've been a black belt for a while. You've been training in the fight sports for a long time. You've professionally been around the fight sports for such a long time, around the pros. So I can't wait to start seeing just the amount of information to come from you. And it's not just, I would assume it's not just what the volume of what you say, but it's what you don't say. You're going to get straight to, to what is very unique in your perspective. There is obviously a body of knowledge out there today through other fight breakdown videos, through technique videos. There's all that. But what we don't have is, your voice and what you have to say. And it's unique. It's a very unique one. As a writer, you learn to first draft your work, and then you edit and you pare down. You take down to its pure essence of what needs to be known. So I look forward to this breakdown series from you. I've got some technical things to do to get it ready. But
really quick, because I'm getting ready to go on a beautiful bike ride here in Utah and get away for that 2.5 hours, 3 hours that we talked about that should be sacred to people. Carving out a couple hours of your day that are just sacred, where you're just emptying the vessel, you're letting go, and you're just one with your mind, with quietude, with serenity. Even a big mouth like me who likes to talk, got to turn off. But anyway, really quick, Frankie Edgar fought. Congratulations to Frankie Edgar on the big win yesterday. I think he was a 2.5. I think he was almost a 3-1 underdog. A lot of people counted him out. He's 38. I just want to say a couple things. I have two interesting. One little thing to point out about Frankie that's interesting, and then I have a story. I have a Frankie Edgar story. So, first of all, Frankie Edgar. If I had to define him in a couple words, I would define Frankie Edgar as take the stairs. 3 words: take the stairs. Because I remember he used to say, like, wherever he was, it was like if he's at a mall, if he's entering UFC before a fight, he's always going to take the stairs. He's never the guy to take the elevator and just coast up and the elevator takes you up. He's not that guy. He said it in one of the stories. I think my colleague at UFC, Tom Gervasi, wrote, it's like, take the stairs. That's a very Frankie. It's like the lunch pail. That guy is a take the stairs athlete. He's not going to stop. He's got great cardio. As big of a heart as anybody I've ever seen. He's been in probably more wars. I don't think I've ever seen a MMA fighter in more wars. I don't think I have. I mean, maybe Shogun Hua, maybe, is up there too in terms of like a guy that took a lick and kept on ticking, like a guy that just, you thought he was finished in fights and he just pops. He's like kind of like Tyson Fury versus the first fight versus Deontay Wilder, where like Tyson Fury seems like he's dead, right? He falls, he hits the ground, and it's like miraculously at the 8 count. Now, that was a long count, by the way. The referee got away with one there. But anyway, how Tyson Fury got off the canvas and regained his wits and got a draw in that first fight is pretty amazing. But Frankie Edgar is every bit that. And I want to, so my Frankie Edgar story is this. There was a fight we had at UFC, I believe it was at the Palms. We did a fight night. And Frankie was there. I don't think he was fighting. He was backstage with some people. And so I was there and I was talking to him. And, he was sitting down. He was sitting down like I am now. And he was like sitting against a wall. And so I was talking to him. I was standing up. I was dressed in like a suit and everything. And so as I was leaving him, I was just messing with him a little bit. We were kind of playful bantering. I never trained with him or whatever. But, I was just talking to him. And then as we were leaving, I turned and I looked at him and I said, you know what, Frankie? You'd make he was fighting at 155 pounds back then, right? He was the smallest. Him and Jens Pulver are the smallest 155-pound fighters ever, in UFC. Maybe there's a couple of Asian fighters out there, but Jens Pulver and Frankie Edgar are the smallest 150. These 155-pounders. I used to train with Gray Maynard, Evan Dunham, Tyson Griffin. All those guys are 180, 184, 185, cutting down to 155. They're huge. They're not. I used to tell Drysdale, bro, they're not my weight. These guys are 180 pounds, 185 pounds. And like, they were my group. They were my 3 and 4 man group, was Tyson Griffin, Evan Dunham, and Gray Maynard. And anyway, so Frankie was fighting at 155. Of course, he was the champion there. He had that great, 2 fights or 3 fights with Gray Maynard, who was a training partner. And so as I was talking to Frankie and I got up to leave and I walked away and I turned around and I looked at him. He was sitting down against the wall. And I said, you know what, Frankie? You'd make a great 135 pounder. I said that to him. I said, you'd make a great 135 pounder. Bro, I turn around and I start walking away and he chucks this water bottle at me. He chucked the water bottle. It didn't hit me. It hit the wall. But he threw a water bottle at me. and I was thinking of that, like, he really didn't like that comment, right? So he was fighting at 155. He was fighting at 155. Going down a weight class would have been 45, but I looked at him and I said, "No, bro." I said, "You just talked 35." He threw this water bottle, little mini water bottle, and he didn't throw it like Conor McGregor, right? He didn't throw it in the same like Conor McGregor throwing it at a press conference at Diaz Brothers. He didn't throw it like that, but he threw it with a little more momentum than I would have thought, right? A little more like, "Whoa, what's up?" He didn't like that. You could tell. And then fast forward to now. What's Frankie Edgar doing? He's fighting at 135, and I feel like a prophet now. I was like, I'm a prophet. And next time I see Frankie Edgar, I'm going to tell him, do you remember one day I said to you, you'd make a good 35 pounder?
Oh, yeah, that's good stuff. Well, we didn't get to all the topics as usual. I wanted to get into some other stuff as well. But this was pretty action-packed. Jordan texted me that he was wrapped up with helping someone move, which priorities, when a friend asks for help, you go help them. Podcast is great to be on, but you're there for your friends. And so that's important. And his training, is obviously, now is his time, he's in that era where, he's got time to perform, to get out there, as I do too. I feel like I'm so young, 48 years young. But you do it in there's more, it's a richer game now at 48. Cause I balance it out with work, with family time, and there's a more richness, I believe, it's with, wine gets better with time. Maybe I think jiu-jitsu does too.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. I think I've said it before, but I didn't start jiu-jitsu till I was 30. So that should be encouraging to a lot of people out there. If you're not I didn't start till I was 30. So the
Good
other
stuff.
thing is, and I have a phrase, and I call it a Forzaism, and I call it "stay youngry." Right? Youngry is the combination of young and hungry. So stay
Stay
youngry.
youngry.
I bought the domain for that too. So that's a Forza Fit original. Stay youngry. So
Or
that's
hangry.
you and I are staying youngry.
Yeah. Or hangry. Don't be hangry.
Yeah.
Be youngry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good time today. I appreciate your time so much, and your viewpoints. Um, let's meet again next week.
All right, brother, and we will get chopping and start churning out some of those breakdowns, and who knows, the breakdowns might wind up being garnering even a lot more attention, which will then hopefully bring eyeballs to what we're doing here at Everyman BJJ, to just for things that both on and off the mats, right? Just making sense of the experience of life on and off the mats to human optimization, right? But it's interesting. These breakdowns might actually create the eyeballs in the audience, which then point
Could be
people
true.
more to the podcast.
You know,
So,
websites.
It'll be interesting to test that. Interesting to test that theory and see how that works.
Well, I use Google Analytics and some other tools to track traffic and visitors. Right now, my own business website, noahgreencpa.com, is I'm integrating some new technology in it, so it's not up to speed right now. It's just so I can take, I need some better mechanisms to receive data. People to send me tax forms and some confidential information. So I have to step back sometimes and re-engineer the website for that. Have you been working on your?
What they say, no. I've heard some of my rich friends say, my well-to-do friends, I say financially rich, because rich can be a lot of different things, right? People can be rich in different areas of their life, but in terms of material wealth, I've heard once you made the millions, even if you lose them, you know how to do it. It's been done, so no one can take that knowledge away, right? So you always have the chance to.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Yep. It's a grind.
You can tap into your inner Frankie Edgar, or even Frankie Forza. I'm a pretty resilient dude too. So, but just tapping into your inner Forza, your inner Edgar, and it's in you. So anyway, everybody out there, Noah, thank you so much. Get on with your family, and I'm gonna get on a cycle and get some sun on my skin. And
sounds good.
Relax.
Well, thank you very much, Frank.